All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is going to be a really exciting panel. We've got 4 heavy-hitting YouTube phenomenons in the maker community. So if you're a maker, you don't know about these guys, you can go home, pull up YouTube, and check out some of their videos. Also, we have the honor of our moderator, Nicholas Godfrey, who's a co-founder and operating partner of the Toronto Fab Lab and FNS Homes, which has developed and marketed a digitally fabricated component building system for residential construction. He's got experience with CNC machines, laser cutting, 3D printing, and he's going to be interviewing this talented panel. So let's put a big hand together for this panel. All right, is that it? Thanks, everybody. Thank you for being here. Hopefully this will work out well for us as long as we got these malfunctions underway. So, does everybody know who all these people are here? Maybe we should just introduce them.
I'm Jimmy DeResta, and I have a channel, which is my name, Jimmy DeResta, and I write my name on everything, so I apologize for that.
Why? I'm Bob Baggett. My channel is I like to make stuff. I make all sorts of stuff.
Izzy Swan, actually my YouTube channel is Think Woodworks, and concentrate on woodworking and stuff.
And I'm Ben Heck with the Ben Heck Show.
You guys are obviously not from Charleston.
New York City.
Savannah.
Charleston.
Wisconsin.
Great.
We'll start with some questions. What did you want to do when you grew up?
Well, I was always playing with things, taking things apart. Typical story. My dad called me the creation kid because he was always keeping me busy. I grew up in a wood shop. My dad had a wood shop. My dad wasn't like a fine woodworker per se, but he was more like a handyman. And all of his projects were right out of the back of Popular Mechanics. He never deviated from that. Sorry. Is that me?
Sorry.
Change the frequency.
There's a ghost in the machine. Yeah.
Okay. How about, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So I grew up taking things apart in my dad's wood shop, and then my dad used to always hand me a hot glue gun, so I was always scrapping things together. And he called me the creation kid because I was always making stuff. It just was a natural act for me. I grew up with 2 older brothers and a younger sister, and I took to the most. So I spent most of my time in the shop, just piecing together scrap and experimenting with tools and materials and mechanisms.
Okay.
It was just a very natural thing for me.
Sure.
And I always wanted to just make, I never knew exactly what I wanted to be. It was never a thing. I just always made stuff. And then as I got older and older, and as I grew up, I just kept making stuff for money. I was in high school. I was kind of groomed to be an architect, and then I realized how difficult the math is, and I'm not a math guy at all. I had to actually cheat to get out of my region, so I didn't have to repeat 12th grade. So I said to the guy in front of me, "So could you just please let me cheat off you?" This kind of thing, like. So I cheated on my 12th grade physics regents to graduate high school, and then right away I said I'm not going into architecture. And I didn't know what to do, so I was floating, and then I eventually found graphic design in the School of Visual Arts after about a year. So, and then I started being a graphic designer. And so I was always an artist at heart, but it was hard for me to identify that. It didn't come clearly right away.
So you sort of apply scientific principles to imagination, creation, something along those lines, right?
I guess, I'm not sure what that means. I'm honestly not that deep. I'm like, oh, I want to make a guitar. Oh, how do they make a guitar? Oh, they just get a chunk of wood. Where do I get all the parts for a guitar? I guess I could just go buy a cheap one and then I have all the parts. Scrap the body, I have all the electronics. So I was always very practical in my approach to stuff. I mean, only because that's just, I suppose, who I am and where I came from. My dad's very practical, so I learned a lot of just practical, invention needs mother, need is the mother of invention and necessity and so on. So my dad kind of primed that environment for me. Yeah, so a lot of my practicality comes from growing up with my dad, I suppose. I wish I was getting paid by all of them. People just give me free stuff and I use it. Oh, they don't pay me. I just buy things on Amazon. I buy easy kind right here. I need an agent. No, I bought this on Amazon for $25. I make a lot of money from my clients. So I was just talking to Izzy about this last night. I make a lot of money from my clients, so I don't always think of taking advantage of all those little frayed ends in my videos. I mean, I almost never get paid by all the people you assume I'm getting paid by. Yeah, so saw stop, give me a saw stop. Thanks. These guys give me a welder. Thanks. These guys give me a thing. Thanks. And that's really it. So I'm trying now to develop those relationships to be more lucrative. But like I said, I make a lot of money for my clients, so it's not like I'm in need. So I feel like, oh, I'm happy, I'm okay. So it's, but you can always use more money. Well, yeah, I mean, I use it, but, they just save me the value of having to buy one, and then they get, the benefit. But I love the tool, and, I cut my finger off once, they put it back on, so hopefully I won't do it again with this new soft start. Yeah, I cut my pinky off 6 years ago. Just put it back on.
Yeah, and actually, his finger is why I bought a salsa. Yeah, we were talking one night, so we have a podcast, he and I, and David, and before we started recording one night, we were talking, I was saying, I kind of want to get a new saw, something a little bit bigger, I don't have a ton of money to spend, I can't afford a saw stop or anything like that. So he goes, oh yeah, check this out, and we're like on Skype, and he's like, yeah, I did this, and I cut it, it fell off, I'm holding it, and then my stomach is going. And I literally, we're talking, I literally was like, I'll be right back. I had to go to the other room and be okay, because it got me thinking about like what could happen. I have a big family, but at the time I was doing YouTube and programming as my job. If I lost a finger, that's all of them.
Set you back tremendous. I mean, I just lost one finger. The doctor told me usually it's 2.5. That's like the odds. It's like 2 in a bag and 1 hanging off. That's what it is.
So after that conversation, I was like, okay, I'm going to save a little bit longer and get this outside. But I did, and it was like one of those best choices. I mean, taking a precaution to get something that is safer is the best decision you can make, regardless of brand.
Yeah, because if things go haywire, I'm a testament that it costs a lot of money and time.
Right.
And if you get out with, some functionality, well, she's almost never, the doctor says it's a total crapshoot. Yeah. The surgeon said, he goes, you're in this predicament, but of this predicament, the best odds are the pinky on your non-dominant hand. You lucked out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sort of visual art backgrounds as far as formal education, right?
Yes, I graduated BFA.
Correct. And so you went to SCAD, which is pretty close to you. And so using that in your professions, but kind of doing the maker stuff with people, my grandparents call it tinkering, kind of organized
Still use it.
Yeah, cleanse you. But I guess in your day job, you were probably thinking about what you were going to make that night, right? Or what you make on the weekend and things like that. And so in 2006-ish, whenever YouTube came around, is that kind of what was the catalyst to help you guys sort of back out of your day jobs and sort of going full-time into your maker-type professions?
We've got pretty different paths to that, I think.
My day job has always been making stuff. I've always worked for myself. If I ever work for anybody in any capacity, it would be me making stuff for them. As for like a schedule, sometimes I was on retainer, so I have been in the fold of companies from time to time, but only for like limited contractual agreements. But I never actually ever worked for anybody, technically. Yeah, thankfully. Yeah.
So when I went to art school and learned a lot of, I went for computer art, so it was the kind of merge of the digital and the artistic stuff. But when you do that, you have to take all the foundation stuff and get exposed to sculpture, painting, drawing, and all this stuff. So I had a background in all those things at a really shallow level. I could barely draw, I could barely do this, but I got exposed to a lot. And then I ended up, I wanted to program. I found that was like the thing. I can create visual stuff with programming. But the school didn't really teach that yet because it was a long time ago. And so I started teaching myself that stuff, which then turned into a programming career. So I ended up doing software for about 15 years, software development. And yes, it was that where I was programming all day, feeling, man, I want to get from this desk and do something else, And so eventually it got to where I started spending my extra time, like restoring scooters and building shelves and doing these different little things, after hours. And then once we started a family, those times were even more important because they're the things that keep you sane the rest of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
So I started doing more and more of that stuff on the side, and then videos were a way for me to justify that time away from my family, because I could say, like, I'm helping somebody else, I'm teaching somebody else how to do a thing. That makes it okay for me to be away from my family for a little while. And then once you start doing that, and you start loving it, it becomes really important, and then the day job is just kind of like there, pulling you back. And so I started going towards shifting those things and getting rid of the day job.
Right. So kind of probably play a
Oh yeah,
big role.
yeah.
Right?
I mean, it was the avenue for me to, just like what Ben was saying earlier, it's the avenue for me to reach people, to get.
It's going to be sustainable, like a long-term thing, or you kind of see it as being like the craftsman movement was back in the, in the late 1800s, early 20th century. It was just, I don't want to say fad or trend, but something that obviously was phased out over time.
How many people here have ever had the desire to make something? Just, you raise your hands. It's not going anywhere. I think it's built into our, it's built into our genetic code. That's what we are. We like to create, do that. And that's, and the internet has found this way to really explode what's going on and get our homes, really. So, I think from this point on, it's nothing to grow. It's going to change. It's going to evolve.
People will come and
It's
go.
always going to be there.
I think the best case scenario, what we would actually all want is for it to be so ubiquitous that the name falls away.
Yeah. So it's
I
always,
mean, and that's a good thing,
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
you guys obviously clearly are very general. You're not, what I would say, special in any one particular field. You are, I don't.
I just make stuff. That's why when I put my bio up from various website, renovations from time to time, I always just leave my bio as I make stuff.
Yeah.
Because when I click open someone's bio and it's like this long, I just want to see what they did. I don't care what that says. I just want to see what they made.
Unless it was like in bullet points or something, and you're very.
Yeah, I'm very visual. So me personally, and I never call myself a professional craftsman in any way because I'm always evolving and I'm always learning. I know how to weld. Am I a welder? A real welder will say, I'm not a welder. And they have said it in my comments. But I make stuff. I make stuff for money. And then they go, oh, well, what's your day job? I go, I make stuff for money. I do not, I tell everybody I do not build walls and I don't do sheetrock. Only for myself. And not people. People always like, the other day someone said, hey, do you want to put a bid in on a bathroom? I go, I don't make that. There's no money in that for me. I said, I feel like I'm a little bit elevated from that. I mean, certain people like I'm friends with, his name escapes me, and we're kind of buddies through the internet, the guy who does bathroom crashes. And he's made a huge living just building bathrooms on the DIY channel. But for me, I built 2 bathrooms in my own house, and to me, it's a complete nightmare. It's not fun. There's nothing rewarding about it. Just when I flush the toilet and there's no water in the downstairs, then I'm happy. But, so I can do it if I had to, but for me, it's more fun in the shop, tinkering, making breakthroughs with small inventions. And, I say inventions broadly, meaning actual mechanical inventions and also inventions in the way of like visual inventions. And, new design styles, design patents and mechanical patents is one of those inventions, both of those things. Yeah. See, I am so analog, I'm like 2-inch tape, you know, in a recording studio. I see that on the street in New York City all the time. I see circuit boards and what Ben does, and to me, that's like brain surgery. You know, it's so, I just can't get my mind, to me, it's like my physics class in high school. It's so complicated to me personally. This gentleman introduces me to stuff from time to time, and I have fans sending me Arduinos with mechanisms. They're like, all you got to do is build the robot around it, and it's still really complicated for me. Like I said, I see what Ben does and what Bob does, and I wanted to be there one day, and I don't know if I ever can be, honestly. Because for me, it's like so easy for me to just like weld and cut and fabricate. That's like, to me, it's just.
And I can't weld, so.
See, I'm with Jimmy here.
There's your team soul.
Ben, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I don't know. I don't even remember, that was so long ago. Probably a transformer.
The white transformer is like the elusive one. I was in the toy business. There was one color transformer that nobody could find.
Really?
Do you happen to remember?
I don't remember, it was so long ago.
Probably got it.
Bob's got it. The guy actually brought his transformer uniform with him for later.
What is something that you guys find that you can't live without on a daily basis? Attached to your literally, like if you were in a certain scenario and you can only take one tool or one thing with you.
Tweezers.
Tweezer.
The drill.
Okay.
Multi-tool.
Multi-tool, yeah.
Okay.
Multi-tool or a pocket knife.
Any particular preference? What's that one particular?
This is a Gerber Crucial. He's a Leatherman guy, but I like this one better just because it
Says
feels
with the sting.
better. And it feels better to me, and it has a snub nose blade to it, snub
Okay.
point, which actually just works better for me and stuff I use.
Okay.
Leatherman Surge for me.
Sir,
Yeah.
now, did you carry down a plane?
I didn't fly, but
Yeah, you didn't take your belt string from the
Yeah, that's why I like the Surges, the way they're a little bigger.
yeah.
Exactly, but I like those little locking pliers.
Yeah. I have them all. I'm of the, for the inventors in the world, and I learned this, I did a Maker Cast podcast, and I talk a little bit more in depth about some of these guys that have inspired me in my life. But my friend Bob, who's since passed away, inspired me in the early 90s. If you're attracted to something, just buy it. You know, even if it's a little outside your budget, because as an inventor, as an artist, that will inspire things within you that you can't identify. So, you know, I'm always buying various multi-tools just to experiment with them. I have more than I'll ever be able to use and break in a lifetime. But for me, I cut them, weld them, and, you know, attach things to them. And that's sort of where it's going to lead, but that's just an example of, you know, I also like this silly camera that's forward from in front of us. So, you know, if it breaks, I can understand why it broke, or if I, you know, stretch it to its limit. So, you know, just buy things that you find attractive for one reason or another, and that will inspire your inventive mind down the road. You know, like if it's a couple $100, it's, you know, it's money well spent if you're an inventor. You know, if you're a consumer and you're just wasting space, it's a different story. But you know, that will regurgitate itself somewhere down the line as a work improvement or altogether new invention. And that goes for anything, like any kind of gadget or whatever.
Yeah, I would say the same thing about tools, because I did the same thing with, like, you know, 3D printer. When I got my first 3D printer, I didn't really have a clear idea what I was going to do with it. You would constantly ask, well, what are you going to print with it? I had no idea, but now it's there, and so if I do have an idea, I can do it. I don't have to wait 6 months to order the thing, whatever.
Right.
I did the same thing with CNC, and now I have a laser coming, and I don't know what I'm going to do with the laser. No, that's Ben, he'll tell me.
Oh, lasers are awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, I
Make
will
lots
find
of
a use-
paper patterns.
Yeah, I'll find a use for it, and it's the same sentiment where, like, you know, if you make the tools available to yourself in some form or fashion, or the inspiration available, you know, you'll use it. If you're constantly looking for new ideas, I mean, you're going to use the stuff that's around you, so surround yourself by the good stuff.
I'm kind of like Ben. I typically don't buy tools when I need it. So, you know, I just recently got into CNCs. And that was a whole scary book because I'm a mechanical guy. I'm kind of a gear. I know nothing about computers or electronics. But I learned that I could do it. So, I use it when I purchased it. I had a very specific goal in mind. I kind of
I'll buy a tool if it's a cool color. I don't care.
They don't mean what.
You guys always find yourselves constantly looking at things in the real world and being, that I can tailor this to my specific need, or that could be a little bit better, a little bit different, and you get it, when you read it, it's modify.
A lot of times, yeah. Sometimes I appreciate something just the way it is, and then I could like look at that and look at the sex appeal of it. And like one thing I can think of is when we were all in WIA, I bought from Woodpecker Tools this like router lift thing. It's all machined aluminum, really sexy. I saw it in the video, I have to have that. I'll never use it, but I like it. And I bought it for the, I just finally installed it in my table, my saw tabletop. Well, yeah, whatever. I mean, it's one of those things like I haven't needed a router table, but I saw that sexy machine thing, and I bought it. And then I couldn't go. Was that? It's supposed to be. Yeah. And so I bought it, and I installed it in my table surface just the other day. So I haven't had a chance to use it yet, but now that's inspiring new video content. So that's another real reason I buy a lot of stuff now, is because I know it's going to inspire video content and get me out of my comfort zone.
I would say sometimes I'm worried about that for myself, because you see those like American Pickers or Orders, like some 90-year-old man with unlimited stuff.
That's my future.
As for me, I'm like I'm like the anti-reporter. I was like, I don't want to end up like that. I actually love selling stuff and having big empty areas in my shop.
Oh God.
I know it's weird. See, we're on opposite ends of the table too. So.
Jimmy puts it out there for everybody to see. I have 2 storage units I pay for monthly, just jam-packed full of stuff.
I just bought my second 40-foot container, by the way. Thanks, Judy, and I'm affordable.
You like to hack up consoles, Ataris, a lot.
Not as much as I used to, but I have done that a lot in the past.
Okay.
I'm more into like building new things now.
Right.
Like because I started hacking existing things, but now I like to come up with new ideas. And one thing we do, I didn't talk about it in my talk, but I'm actually into pinball machine manufacturing now. Yeah, so that's a lot of electromechanical, mechanical, even woodworking.
Sure.
I still can't weld it. I'm going to learn how to weld. That is what I'm on my to-do list.
Yeah, welding's actually a lot easier than a lot of people think. It's intimidating because there's a
Yeah,
lot
I've heard
of
if you're good at soldering, it's not
Yeah.
incredibly
Can you
difficult.
use a hot glue gun?
I love hot glue guns. I got a big giant one. Oh yeah, I made a analog control hot glue gun.
Oh,
with a Xbox trigger.
Oh,
And it had a friction key, so you could control how fast the glue would come out. Because glue guns now suck.
They all-
Back in the 90s they were better, but they've just gotten cheaper and cheaper. You sit it on your table there, and it just leaks the whole time.
Totally. I have stalactites, stalagmites, the ones that come up.
Yeah.
They're on my work table, they just drip. And I have one that looks like bug eggs. It's like 1,000 of them on a row.
Like silicon mat for it.
No, I just have them on the floor.
A friend of mine got me a silicon mat, and it won't stick to that mat. But it shouldn't leak in the first place. But the thing we did with as you mentioned, the electronic one, is after you let go of the trigger, it would contract the glue, which is also what a 3D printer does, to keep it from leaking. So the glue is pulled back a little bit. So, yeah.
Have you guys ever seen this one that's actually pneumatic? So it
Oh, yeah.
actually right there.
Sure.
It's basically a caulk tube, and the glue is tiny little beads inside that it gets screwed up. But it's a pretty, it was an investment.
How much?
It's about $3,000.
I got
Not inventing any hot glue gun.
Yeah. About halfway between that, I got one for McMaster Car, and it looked smaller on the website. It was the end of the year, I was trying to use a taxable income, and it was like, oh, that's a super glue gun, it's like $300, I'll get that. And it comes out, it's this huge freaking thing, it looks like a Desert Eagle or something. But I started using it, it's like oh, yes. Look how much you know, it's not like, wiener. And I was like, oh yes, it just go forever.
Yeah.
Glue guns are great.
Yeah,
I'd be right behind tweezers.
I think glue gun is like one of the most important tools for an inventor because when I go in and I turn my shop simply flips off with one switch, all the electric shuts off, so I don't accidentally leave anything on. But when I flip the switch on, the hot glue gun's always plugged in, it's always ready to go. Because if you get inspired, you're like, oh, what if this sticks on here? And you just hot glue it, and then you're looking at it, and you think about it, ultimately you know you're going to connecting with dental, cement, or something else. But when you make connections, it's like, oh, what is this gonna be like when this is stuck on this? What is this? What is that? That's how connections happen. That's why I kind of like a little bit of the chaos around me. Because when I see something end up like this, I'm like, this is cool, because I think very visually. And I'm like, oh, when this is like this, and it's like that, and I just start kind of building Lego-y kind of things out of the objects around me. And then I start hot gluing stuff together. That's when you really start to, that's when you kind of, you free yourself from the notion of, what is the shape gonna look like? Like, what's the functionality, what's the invention? Get to that first and then work backwards from, back into it. And then hot gluing is just a quick way to, breadboard and just flush things out.
Do you have magnets too?
I love magnets, but in my shop, they're all furry because I'm grinding, it's a pain in the butt.
Sure.
Yeah. So every magnet I pick up, I gotta like pull all the fuzz off.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna ask Ben another question about PCBs or control boards. You were kind of getting ready to say something, I believe, about you don't really take and modify the Atari consoles anymore. Do you actually start from the ground up and design circuits?
Yeah.
And what exactly are you applying that to? Is that something that you're kind of driven by purpose, or are you just doing it out of creative spirit?
Well, we designed our own pinball machine controller for one. We have the pinball machine controller, we also have an LCD driver with an FPGA, and then some other subboards. The reason we did that was because there are people that make existing DIY pinball systems, and they cost way too much money.
Okay.
So we did the classic thing, it's like, oh, we'll just build our own, and then we have the verticals, we're not building them to sell for profit, we're building them to build a game with. Right. So we're not having to add $300 or whatever it is because our business is making the boards. We're making the boards to make a game.
Sure.
So we basically did that to get all the verticals and make it cheaper for us. And now, I know pinball sounds archaic, but it's actually really hot now as a boutique item. A lot of rich people want it for their basements.
Yeah.
And middle income people. But the existing boards that are out there are like, you spend like $900 putting brain in one. We have it down to about $190. If you did it yourself, and we don't have any computers, it's all microcontrollers.
Okay.
You don't need a computer to run a pinball machine. That's overkill. Do it 2 micros.
Is yours weigh about 1,000 pounds?
No, they don't weigh that much. Like they're usually around 250.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, there's a pinball museum in Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, here? Oh wait, we're in South Carolina. Oh. I always get the Carolinas. Oh, I didn't realize there was a war between the Carolinas.
I'm gonna get to you, I'm living here and I still do.
Oh, okay. All right.
What kind of materials do you guys would gravitate toward? It sounds like it's a pretty broad spectrum here. What's the go-to stuff that you guys love to have around to work with, to idea,
As far as like my whole, I have from mostly through the 90s into the early 10s, I did a lot of toy prototyping, and I almost always exclusively ultimately ended up with vacuum form styrene. So if I'm making a housing or something, I'd always start with hot gluing and then eventually like this volume next to this volume and hot glue and bond this to this, and then cut it in half and vacuum form both halves. That now is manifested in 3D printing. But styrene was a very, very big part of my life for a long time. Now it's obviously all kinds of wood and metal. But styrene for prototyping and building enclosures is really good. And to something Ben reminded me of, a lot of times I work with high school students, and there's good and bad things about the 3D printer. And I see high school students, they'll print a volume like this. They'll spend 5 hours printing a cylinder. I go, if you take cardboard and wrap it up, it makes a cylinder in about 20 seconds. And because they get wrapped up in that. I'm talking like 9th and 10th graders that have, replicators in their shop in their makerspace. And so it's, a lot of times it sometimes overcomplicates the thinking process as opposed to simplifies it. So it's funny when kids don't realize that you just go buy tubes and cylinders and kind of prototype that enclosure within minutes. Instead of working on the actual invention, they're getting stuck on an enclosure that it's going to take them 3 hours to print. And in the middle of the printing, the thing just bugs out, and tomorrow they start printing it again. I'm like, work on the invention, and work on the enclosure.
Right.
So just go buy a milk bottle or a pint-sized milk carton and cut the bottom off, and that's your enclosure, just for your bread bowl. Get your prototype, get your functionality down before you worry about the slickness.
Well, I think that goes with age and generation, like, we're all older, we remember, we know what it was like to not have any of that stuff,
Yeah.
cardboard. They haven't grown up in that world, so.
Yeah, that's what I'm
whenever
saying.
When your only tool's a hammer, everything's a nail.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right, it's still kind of, something they need to work on, but, you know, their mind is just wired differently.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, because, well, you have someone that never had any real intentions of making anything, now can 3D print something.
Mhm.
And like I said, they kind of get stuck in the mud a little bit, I noticed, but I guess, you know, with good guidance and proper teaching.
Well, I would say I do that too. I mean, there's things that I'll do where I'll just immediately order a PCB because I'm like, I'd rather spend the money and just get it than like try to muck around with like laser etch.
No, yes, I do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, we should all be lazy in our own ways.
Sure, yeah.
Well, it's kind of like what you were saying about, I mean, maybe not in the case of the teenagers, but in our case, valuing your time. Where is like your creative energy and your specific skill set going to be the most valuable? It's probably not making an enclosure.
Right.
Normally, for you know.
Right.
Your time is better spent somewhere else. And so having a printer do that work that's mindless, even if it takes 10 times as long, makes sense for you because
You could be
it's
doing
not
other
you
things
doing 10
at the same
times as
time.
work, it's
Yeah.
that thing doing 10 times the work.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so it's a matter of how you manage your time, really.
I think it's like got a lot to do with your enjoyment. If you enjoy the process, then, you know,
Yeah,
it's, you know, why not do it that way, even if there's a
really,
quicker way to do it.
really good point.
Well, and that's an argument that comes up with CNCs a lot, especially in YouTube. Like, you know, in our comments, we have people coming to watch our videos that are fine woodworkers. Fine, they don't watch my videos, but there are fine woodworkers, there are like DIY woodworkers, and then there are machinists, and they all look at doing a dovetail in a very different way because depending on what tool they use. And, you know, so you can use a tool to kind of accomplish whatever it is you want to accomplish, or you can use your time to accomplish those same tasks. You know, those fine woodworkers, they want the process of sitting down and chiseling and cutting a dovetail.
So if they're
Me,
willing-
that would drive me insane. There's a CNC that can do that perfectly well right there. Like, why would I waste that time? But different people have different goals.
Right, if you want to get to California, you're not gonna walk, you're gonna take the plane.
I'm not gonna-
He would drive, I would fly.
We have a question, Dennis, if we want to take that question,
Yeah.
and then go next.
Thank you. So for people who are building a makerspace, you know, some budget, right? Not just always the cheap stuff. I'd be interested to ask the panel, do you guys have like one or two like specific recommendations for like equipment or like a type of a workstation, things like that, that would be like valuable for sort of mixed group people to kind of work on together? For kind of a variety of projects.
I mean, I always tell everybody to get a bandsaw first, because it's a simple thing. You can cut straight lines, you can cut curves, you can actually do a lot of sort of sculpting. I do a lot of sculpting on the bandsaw, which, you know, comes with time. Table saw. I'd say for makerspace, don't get a skill saw, because it's super dangerous, and that takes a little bit more acquired taste. A table saw is extremely dangerous, but it's not as dangerous as like a handheld circular saw. Don't buy an overhead, maybe a long saw, because that's also super dangerous for novice people to play with. So a table saw and a bandsaw is really where it's at. Maybe a router table, you know, because in the right hands, I've seen people do beautiful work with a router table, things that I've never even attempted. These guys are doing beautiful dovetails and simple stuff like this, great finger jointed boxes. But, you know, it's all a matter of the determination. If you create the environment, the makerspace is the environment. People will come in, they'll borrow a jigsaw from a friend or a father or somebody. So I think the most important thing is just creating that environment. And then the tools that come and go, you know, they'll follow. The environment, I think, is the most important thing.
Well, and one thing I've seen in makers, I've only been in a few makerspaces, but one thing I've seen is where they go, we gotta get this thing set up so that it's usable for everyone. So let's buy, like, everything we can think of, or whatever we can afford, and just put it in there. And that's probably the wrong approach, because you don't know what people are gonna wanna make, you don't know what skill level they're coming in at. And so, in my mind, it would make more sense to buy a few, like a bandsaw and a table saw, a few things that are capable if you know what you're doing, or if somebody can guide you along. And then as people come in for 6 months and say like, oh, actually, I'm actually really interested in doing, you know, jewelry making or electronics. Well, it's a good thing you didn't spend your money on a wood shop, you know. And over time, as you grow the makerspace, you can add more stations and more tools. But I think getting the bare essentials and then gauging the next step based on who's there and what they want to do is probably a safe approach.
One can make a case for saying essentially the same thing, but I would probably recommend doing a CNC router firstly, because there is some degree of
Yeah, it's good point.
Bob said something earlier that was pretty interesting, is that when everybody is making and there are a lot of companies out there that are trying to make free fabrication more accessible to the public. And GoForce comes to mind, I found out about it, shooting a show. What do you guys think are the barriers that you come down for fabrication more of those mass market accessible sort of out? I even see it like so it's like someone was thinking that well, it's you. It's just like something.
Well, reliability is a big one. I mean, any of us who work with 3D printers, we know they're pretty sketchy. And,
Yeah, I think it's the learning curve in general, because I have a lot of students that I teach at our art college now, for quite a bit of time. I teach 20-year-olds, and it's the learning curve. They see me doing something in their life, I'm never going to do that, and then I show them, 3 or 4 simple elements, and they go, oh wow, it's accessible to me now. So people, before I actually sat them down and said, these are the 3 things you need to do a bookbind or whatever it is, they didn't have the gumption to go and do it themselves because they just said, that's out of my league. So being able to give people the entree into these digital fabrications. I mean, I know my entree into digital fabrication was I was at a couple of maker fairs and I kept thinking, oh, I can do everything with a router in advance, so I don't need it. I'm old school, I don't need that. And then I see this like 13-year-old kid make a beautiful something on the thing. I'm like, so jealous of a kid. And so I bought a MakerBot, I bought a ShopBot. I bought a ShopBot desktop. I didn't even know what I was going to do with it. It was so intimidating. I've talked about this publicly a lot. Had no idea how to use it. I broke 3 or 4 bits and it was just like shifting it around. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And so that was one fear factor. And then the other fear factor was a Windows computer. Somebody opened this thing up. I bought it years and I have no idea what to do with this thing. I still don't know what to do with it. I'm comfortable with the 3 paths I've made to my end product. But I think the most important thing for the novice is just having the comfortable entree level and introduction to it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I think software is the biggest hurdle right now to any of those things. 3D printers have been around for 20 years or something. CNCs, lasers, they've been around. It's not new. But they're slowly getting more and more accessible from a software perspective because that's the thing that people have. They can look at a CNC and say, that cuts stuff. Cool. I don't want to cut anything. That cuts stuff. I can, so how do I get from here to there?
Yeah.
And then you run into the software that's just horrible to use.
So, like
That's the thing that's ruining it.
you remind me of my personal experience. When I bought the ShopBot, I opened the software, I have no idea, I was using the wrong version of the software, I have no idea what I was doing. And I spent literally 10 minutes with somebody at ShopBot at the Maker Fair in New York. I'm like, I own this machine for 4 months, I have no idea what to do with it. And you guys are, oh, well, when you open this program, you do it, and I'm like, got it. It's like Illustrator, this is like Photoshop, that's like so I had all these other things to compare it to, and I automatically said, oh, that's a vector, that's a vector file. Well, it's not really, I'm like, I know, okay, I got it. And so I walked away knowing exactly what to do, and I never had to call ShopBot again. It was like, for the first 2 months, I was like, it's their guy, and off again. Get him off the phone.
It kind of goes into demystifying it.
Exactly.
And having an entry point, and it's kind of like telling a joke. Like if you walk into a room and you're going to tell a joke, you have to base your joke off something people might know.
Yeah,
Like,
familiarity.
Right, so if, like you said with like Illustrator, it's like, here's your router, I don't get that. Okay, well it uses vector files, I don't get that. Well, those are made in Illustrator. Oh, I know that. But kind of reverse it down to a point where the person knows about it,
Yeah.
and then you can show them the path of using it.
Yeah.
And just show them that's not magic.
And I think like the software is, the companies are understanding that now. They're not really changing the hardware that much. Glowforge maybe is an exception, as like physically the hardware is a lot different than any other laser that I've seen. But they're starting to realize that the software is the problem, so they're spending their money and their time on the software. You got things like the Glowforge software, Easel from Inventables. These are first generation accessibility applications. So they're not great yet. They don't do everything you're going to want to do, but they're a step towards getting rid of that layer of problem for people. So, in another generation, another 5 years, 10 years, you're going to have like really full-featured Easel and Glowforge, whatever, and all the 3D printing software is getting simpler and easier monthly. I mean,
So it's a
there's,
time thing.
yeah, it's just, it's growth. I mean, these things have to mature, and they're maturing faster than a lot of other things are.
So the level of sophistication and the cost of the technology, the analogy that I like to use is that if, for some of us that are old enough to remember as personal computing in the 1970s and early 1980s, you practically had to have your PhD in computer science just to operate on this. It's very comprehensive. And now everybody's pretty much got one in their pocket.
Yeah.
It's very powerful and very easy to use. No one even cares or notices anymore that they're not connected. So I think it's just a time, we're just waiting, like you was alluding to, for things to be more streamlined and user-friendly. Basically like programming the microwave to cook something, that's kind of the level that it's probably will eventually get down to.
Yeah, I remember there was a time, in New York City, I worked, you guys old enough to remember the original Absolute Vodka ads? Absolute this, Absolute that. All those ads were actual physical 3D models, and I worked in that shop as a college student. The drink, yeah. Well, there was a 3D modeling shop that made all those things, and everybody always thought they were computer generated. This was the early days of computer CGI. And they made everything physically. And I remember like using them because I worked in there as a student. I was an intern there. And I remember thinking to myself, well, I'll never need to go to a computer because these guys can make these beautiful absolute soccer things. And when I mature in my level of skill, I'll never need a computer. But then one of my students in the late 90s was actually Nick Bilton from the New York Times. I don't know if anybody knows him. Nick, he's a tech guy for New York Times. He was my student in the 90s. And he's the one who said to me, get a computer, you'll figure out why you need it. And I remember I laid down however many hundreds of dollars for a Mac. It was the blue plastic housing one. I had no idea what I was going to do with it, and Nick gave me a CD with like old programs, Illustrator, Photoshop. I had no idea. I opened them all, but I didn't know what to do. I was like noodling around in them. This is like 97, 90, 96, 97. But now I think like, where would life be without it? Pre that, I never needed it. I never needed email. Oh, I could just think of it.
That's the best tool, is the one you're like, how did I live without this?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Just kind of on the same topic, for Disney. I got the impression when you built like that evolving dinosaur, that you just like made that. I mean, is there like you didn't draw that up in like SketchUp? Are there anywhere where you gather like your layout techniques or something that's that complicated? Because it seemed like I watched that and it made me sick. I was like, did he just spend like 6 months learning how to make a walking dinosaur, work on the drill, or is there like you got like a bag of tricks that he used to make that just like Jimmy's talking about the cardboard or whatever it is.
Well, I'm a designer by trade, and
Yes.
I've had most of my life, so I think I went through several different styles of legs before I found this ones that work, and they were inspired by the Dutch artists who did the strand pieces. It's the same mechanism, only I messed around with measurements instead of doing the smart thing and trying to find one line. So as far as laying something out like that, I have a basic idea about how this whole thing is going to work from the start. So it was just a matter of finding the right measurements and then laying things up full size and then
Trial and error.
Yeah, pretty much. And it doesn't take long. I mean, you've got a jigsaw and a big bench, you can draw things out and you whip 3 or 4 miles outside of an hour.
You can learn a lot more by building physically and testing it than you can trying to think how it would work on the computer.
Yeah. And I still do things backwards. I now make plans for things because I have subscribers who are interested in it, but I like to build first. And when I'm going through that process, I typically find a lot of problems with the build that I can avoid in the next prototype, I guess. I've tried designing prior to building something, and I still can't. Where I know a lot of guys, that's what they do. They design it and then they build it. For me, I do it the other way around.
I'm the same way.
I have the idea. Yeah, I have the idea in my head. I go forward with it. And 90% of the time, everything works out just the way it's supposed to be. But there's always a few things I know that I would change if it was something I was going to put out in the world. And for me, those problems really show themselves very well in the physical world, but they would for me in the graphic or the design place.
To that point, and then also to something Ben said, whenever I make anything, and I just talked about it this Friday, I think, on our podcast. Whenever I make anything, or whenever my students make anything, I tell them, make it again, and then make it again, and then make it again. If it's one product that you're focusing on, whether it's a skill level like bookbinding. Just gotta keep doing it, and you'll improve it each time. If there's one particular product that's gonna function and you try to sell it as a product, do it 10 times. You know, I've met inventors that have had, like, they pull out a bag and they've opened it up and they want help on their 13th version of the prototype.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so,
They can't do experience.
yeah, yeah,
You just gotta do it.
yeah.
Yeah, and once you've done it for a while, you start thinking through the process before you begin the build process. So it becomes, like, for instance, if you're building a mechanical thing, you start thinking going forward, like how much torque do I need to make this thing walk? What kind of reduction system am I gonna have to use to make an 18-volt drill power a 15-foot long 10-foot dinosaur and a human body on it? So you start thinking about all these things prior to the actual building process, so you can incorporate them into what you're doing.
We've got time for about 2 more questions.
This young man here. This young man.
You have a concern that, particularly the younger people, that are so dedicated to working with the individual, working with a mill at the right time. You can be fundamental tool having necessary building on it.
Are you a machinist? You're a dying breed, unfortunately.
I'd like to take this one if I can.
Yeah, go for
Quick. I love this question because I have 7 children. And one of the things that I see with them, because I really want them to get involved with making and developing, because it's very rewarding and satisfying. And I love seeing their faces when they build something. But I'm finding that to get, like my 14-year-old now, to get him really interested in what's going on, I started with the technical side of things, like we're building a CNC together. With that, he's going to have to learn the fundamentals, because I don't think, no matter how far we get along, there is still going to be the fundamental thing that we have to know how to do to put things together. You know, even if you can print out everything out of CNC, you're still physically putting these parts together. You know, so I think that in some ways, for me anyway, the technology is helping me teach my son fundamentally. Interested in it. So you do something with the CNC, you cut out this part, but now you have to put it together, you have to fit it just right. So there's a process.
I have something for that as well.
You go.
I'm a musician, and so I think of that problem the way I looked at music when I was growing up. Any kid can sit down at a piano and pick out, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and they can do that, and then they can do that better and better and better until they just pick out, they hear something on the radio, and then they go and they pick it out. If you want to write music, eventually you have to go from that to, I have to learn some fundamental stuff, how scales work, how music works, so that I can make the specific thing that only I can make. And so there's a depth where kids are going to use 3D printers or use CNCs to do a thing that they want to do. But if eventually they want to make that thing that only they can think of, those tools are going to, there's a shelf there where I can't go past this until I go backwards and learn that fundamental stuff. So it is a concern, but it's not a concern for everybody, because not everybody's going to write music. Not everybody's going to make it an original thing. That's the way I think about it.
To your point, I see a lot of kids, and then also I get tons of emails from young kids. They say, I 3D printed, I 3D this, and I'm learning, it's an entree. But then when they get nostalgic about it, then they go back and they watch Mr. P. I always tell everybody that Mr. P 222, I don't know if you know Mr. P. And they say, oh, I found a Bridgeport in my neighborhood, or I'm going to get myself a South Bend. So I think it's going to do more good than a lot of traditional machinists assume, because it's going to get more people into it from an invention point of view. So like, I know I need to invent this thing, I need to get my own South Bend. Or I need to do this thing, I need to figure out how to use a Bridgeport. Just like you were saying. Because I think, as opposed to the traditional path of machinists, like, I'm going to go get a good job to work at, Boeing. I think it's going to be more, it's going to be more, I just got a feeling that there's going to be more of a resurgence in machining. We might not have the traditional apprenticeship system, but I think you're going to see more people in the long run getting their hands on those tools.
Yeah, and I think we're in a better place than we were like 20 years ago with this. I mean, we're becoming a community of makers, not just consumers. So I think there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and then there's open source, I might not have the exact name, open source machining, where there's just like constant, I said, it's not like the way it used to be, where somebody would be by your side and, sweeping the shop and learning the traditional way. I don't know, maybe only little small towns in Europe and little tiny small towns in America where you could still do that, but the larger scale, people are gonna learn how to use things on YouTube. So this gentleman has had his hand up the whole time.
I think Ben, you had mentioned using 360, you used that earlier. I was interested in how many of your different prototype machines you're utilizing for, and if you see that type of software as kind of the next.
How often I've used it?
Which, like, you have laser cut.
Oh, yeah, I've only been using the Fusion for probably, I don't know, 4 months or so. There are a lot of things you can do with it. You can actually use it to drive your CNC machine, so you can design in it and it'll drive it. I don't do that because I get stuck in my ways. I'm like, okay, I know how to use, what is it, Artworks or whatever, ShopBot. You know, I know how to do that. There is something really handy with those 3D programs, like Autodesk has this with some of their other programs as well. If you want to make something with a laser cutter, it will slice it for you to make like multiple two-dimensional pieces to create a 3D piece. However, I do like the Fusion 360. Once I can have something with multiple parts. I can click on one part and send it to the 3D printer right from the program. That's super handy. But again, I really haven't had enough time to really dive into it because sometimes you're so busy building, you don't have enough time to learn anymore.
Yeah.
But it's a cool program.
Let's give a big round of applause for our panel.